done here is just try to visualise a little bit the paragraph structure, applying the language that we're using in core, which is developing sentences, transitional sentences, and concluding sentence. And I've taken the actual definitions of what they should be, so that you can use this as you are to checklist yourself. This is from one of our slides on paragraph unity, but I like it because it's a real example, and so often what we show you are examples we make, or it's from a journal, I believe, but it's just a demonstration of that paragraph we just talked about. In particular, this one has a topic sentence, a concluding sentence. There are two blocks of evidence here being developed, and the topic is about cognitivists, okay? Theories, which probably something you might touch in education, that's covered in a lot of subjects. Topic sentence and concluding sentence are packaging the paragraph, and I want to talk further about those. They are very important. But just to show you a real life example, recognise this slide? Yes? You will see the slide in the tutorial this week, and it is breaking down those the role of those sentences. And I'm going to talk a lot about developing sentences today. We're going to identify some of the transitional sentences as well, their role. And I think transitional sentences can be quite tricky, because sometimes they're not sentences, they're phrases, or they're even just words, but they're acting in a transitional way. And I think it's important for you to be to sense that. But critically, I've taken those definitions of the topic sentence and the concluding sentence, because you are going to be clearly marked on whether you have achieved creating a concluding sentence that is showing the relevance of the paragraph, and certainly it playing the right role, summarising the main ideas presented in that paragraph. So these are the sentences we are going to work on identifying. I wanted to give you a visual plan, I think, because I think in this first task, and particularly to be thinking every time you are starting to use your notes and maybe paraphrasing them or summarising, whether or not they are acting as a supporting idea, are there too many ideas there, and to even just think about what it is that is being developed. Quite often when you're planning paragraphs, even if you don't do it this way, this is just one. But this is a way of actually, and it could just be dot point, it could be you're writing full sentences, it could be that you have no idea yet what your topic sentence is going to look like exactly, but what I would highly recommend is keywords. And you've been given those keywords. Make sure they're there. Make sure that this is mapping from your planning from this. Okay, so this one we looked at earlier, this is sort of making sure you've got you're actually done enough research to transfer it across. And another thing I'd like to say is it may not be that you have 4 lots of supporting ideas. It could be less or more. It's more or less just, and some of these should be bigger than others. And that's something that you have to be critical of. So this plan is for you to work with. I was considering getting you to work with it in the class, but I think for this example, which is the Harvard style, and I hope this might start to move towards understanding the role of transition, I want you to work with people around you for a few minutes, particularly if you've got that little box on the back, and really just to try and identify what's going on in this paragraph. How many words do you think it is for a starter? 300? 300? I had to actually pull it out and put it into Word to count it, because PowerPoint doesn't do that for you. But 117. Oh, actually, this one's a little bit less. So it's not even half of what you're going to be writing. Keep that in mind. But I wanted you to see if you can identify, deconstructing, I suppose, going backwards. If someone had used this to write it, what were the topics? What are the supporting ideas? What is the topic? What's going on the concluding sentence? Is there a concluding sentence? That's always a good question to ask. Often I see paragraphs without them. What's happening with the sources? And just sort of see if you can identify supporting ideas, the main idea, and if there's a relevance. And more importantly, is there any transition? Is there flow? I've highlighted some of those things for you, which are I suppose they're really the surface stuff, but it's stuff you will be marked on. But before you even edit for this, which you should edit for. What's going on with the content? Is there a logical flow of ideas? Would this be good enough? It certainly wouldn't make the word count. And this is not answering the question that you're answering, but can you identify, just with a partner, and if you do have that box on the back, I just thought you could note keywords down there as a starting point. I'm going to put up the APA version actually, because I've been a little bit Harvard-centric. So here's the APA version, and for your case, Val, can you see the differences there? Comma?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Yes, there's commas used.
Commas used. What else?
P dot.
P dot. That's also in Harvard, but
I didn't know.
the P. Where's the page number sitting? Right beside it. There should be a space between the dot. That's a good point. That's an error. Yep. And often they do come out a bit strange when they transfer. But notice that Unison 2008. With Harvard, you would have put the page number with 2008 with a comma. But with APA, one of the variations is the page number sits after the quotation. But I'd like to point out quite quickly the likelihood of using quotation for this paragraph. How many of you are thinking you're going to have lots of quotation in your paragraph? Probably not. Is there room?
No.
Can you achieve it without it? Yeah. So just being aware of that, but I like to show that as a variation, and you will probably, if you write an essay later, you'll be using quotation. While I've got you captured here, I'm teaching you some referencing that will go beyond this first task, but you may not need to put any quotation in, but I wanted to point that difference out because it's one of the annoying, overlooked differences with Harvard and APA. And this one is what we would suggest, what we teach. This is a little embedded quote. And I've done that because I thought that study of the transfer of meaning, well, I didn't really want to play with that. It was very powerful or important. So I've actually done an integrated quote and kept it within my paraphrase to keep control over that sentence, to reduce my need of having to explain why I've quoted, which is really what often quote leads to. You need to explain why it's there. So you need to use extra words, I guess. They're frowned upon because often students do them as a way of not having to paraphrase. Now, when they're being used powerfully, and there's going to be discussion about the quote, they are very powerful. And often you will, that's why you tend to see them more in argumentative formats, i.e. the essay. The other place they're quite powerful is if you're doing lit reviews and you're comparing, blah blah said this, Unison said this, however, highlighting another author has said it this way. This essay is going to take, this approach, so that can be really powerful. It's got a purpose then. So I think for the purposes of one paragraph, it has to be really doing something, and it certainly can't just be there because, just ran out of time to paraphrase this. So, and that's probably what a lot of markers see in a first attempt.